Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Audio Wave Network studios here on Detroit's Lower East Side, powered by Eastside Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform for authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. We will now be dropping a new episode every single week, to my dismay and Donna's pleasure. And we have a very special guest in the building with us today. We have the new Chief Storyteller for the city of Detroit. I think you've heard of him. He may have co-hosted Authentically Detroit while I was away. His name, ladies and gentlemen, is Eric Thomas.
Welcome, Eric.
Hola.
And
I'm back.
He's back. And he's back in a major way.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I thought I went viral on LinkedIn a little bit, right? So I posted a congratulatory note to Eric on LinkedIn with a picture of the both of us that was snapped at Urban Consulate. And I was doing unusual numbers on LinkedIn. I get a little bit of attention, but I was getting more attention because Eric was on my page. And so I sent him the analytics. I'm like, yo, I'm getting all these numbers. And then he beasted me and sent.
I do damage on LinkedIn.
He sent his, and he had 50,000?
63,000.
Yeah,
excuse me.
what were your numbers, Orlando?
Maybe 2,000.
Ooh, that's still, listen, I might have about two. So. It's so interesting. I'm so excited to talk about the whole storytelling because, back in the day when you couldn't tell somebody was lying and you said they were telling stories.
Mm-hmm. I heard about that.
You couldn't say, I couldn't say lie in front of my grandma.
Yeah, that's why you said it,
They're
because you couldn't say
stories.
lie. They're telling stories.
They're telling stories. And now Eric is telling stories. We got to talk about his stories.
But they're going to be true.
I don't
they ain't going to be lies.
Well,
My company is a storytelling agency. That's
Shout
what
out to Saga.
Right. Yeah. If you look at the website, it says Saga, the storytelling agency.
Well, Saga kind of implies storytelling.
It is. I've taken storytelling way too seriously.
Yes, you have, but I'm just going to say that I know there's some people who actually believe that the chief storytelling job is the the old he's telling stories job, and I know that you have a completely different perspective on that. And I'm really happy to share exactly what storytelling is, because storytelling is in our tradition, right?
Oh yeah,
it's how we communicate
the
griot.
Come on.
And so I think that there's suspicion, especially before you got this job. The thing that really amazed me about Eric getting this job, I know we're not talking about this yet, I was just waiting. Eric had told me some time ago. I can keep a secret. I'm so proud.
It's so good.
Some time ago, he had told me about what was happening, right? And he was expecting some blowback. And the opposite happened.
It was crazy. People were just with it. I'm like, let's go.
This is major.
Right? And so
it's major
that
for
was
the city.
Probably, the most exciting thing about it is that your narrative is so well established that people trust you in this role.
Yeah.
And I think before someone tells stories, they have to be trusted. And I'm not in any way trying to negatively comment on your predecessor, but you're better known in this space by so many people. And I think that you've
But shout out to Aaron Foley and what he did.
Oh,
though.
yeah, he broke ground.
Shout out for creating that opportunity and space for me, because I wouldn't have been able to do this without him in space.
And I'm not trying to minimize it at all. I'm just saying that I've heard some criticism back in the day when he took that job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was waiting for the same kind of criticism to come to you, and it just hasn't. So I was going to start some
This
stuff.
man is magic.
Right? It's like this magical
magic.
Negro.
I heard that from one of my friends in the office.
Eric Thomas is magic.
One of my homies was like, I had just met her in the space because I've been meeting with everyone. I'm going out of my way to make sure I meet with every single person to find out what's going on. And she goes, well, I'm a little annoyed nobody got upset. She was like, I wanted some fight.
Exactly. I was ready to defend him. I had my stories out. I was just ready. Go. And I was like, wow, I guess I'll just compliment him too.
And to give the story to the black publication in town was dope too.
It was.
You know what? This is the thing. This is why I think black media is important. That story was sent out through a regular PR
press
release.
wire. Yeah,
I sent it to my guy Jamil at the Michigan Chronicle. because we talked about it before. I talked to a lot of people before I took this role because I think it's very important that I have good support and good counsel, which we don't do enough of. Just get counsel on the decisions, right? I don't know everything. I'm a kid, right? I'm 32, but I feel like a child. And, I sent it to Jamil, and Jamil made it happen immediately, right? So shout out to Black media, and that's why you need Black media, because even if it's not the thing that takes you over the top, it is always the thing that lays your foundation.
Yeah.
And that's why Black media is important, because they will always celebrate you even when people are trying to ignore you.
Talk about
Wow.
dropping
Well,
gems.
we had an episode on Black media and the importance of blacks in media. And now there you are in another type of media.
You should have been here.
Right?
Yeah. And if any other publication, Cranes would have dropped it, they would have got all that exposure.
Right.
But Michigan Chronicle got all, I had about over 1,000 shares on that post.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what happens.
We recently just had a conversation about our Black city, Black journalists telling Black stories in this city with Kat Stafford, Brandon Hunter.
Incredible
and Candace Fortman.
Yep.
And man, so we're rounding out this discussion today, I guess, right? With none other than the Eric Thomas. So we're way ahead of ourselves, and this is exciting to us. So we're just going. How is everyone's weekend? Everybody having a good time?
It was good.
It was good. Okay, she's like, let's get back to the story.
I've been
it
working.
was good. It was not like it was good. I was just chilling. It was nice, chillable weekend.
A nice chillable week. Good.
Babysat Luna.
Look at all the love.
The little things that are the big things.
She is much more confident telling me what to do right now as her vocabulary expands. Stop that.
Oh, I need some lessons from Luna on how to tell Donna what to do.
Good luck.
I do a pretty good job, like inadvertently. Like, hey, this is what we doing.
This is what we finna do.
He's smooth with it.
I'm real smooth with it. How was your weekend, Eric? Did you work? You worked.
Hell yeah, man. I've been trying to balance out the job. I haven't had a job in 10 years.
Dang.
So I'm trying to balance out the job, and then the minute the clock strikes 5:30, because I still have to have grace period to talk and deal with things, I then hit the ground running with Saga as I'm staffing up and hiring people to make sure that those things work. And then I'm getting new clients that were coming on since before this role was even announced. And so my business was on an upward trajectory. And then this came, and so now my schedule, I went from being and we'll talk about this at some point, I went from being completely flat broke to having a double ascension at the same time, but it's created a I'm going to bed at 3:00 in the morning, I'm getting up at 6,
Yeah.
You better than me.
Yeah,
I'm working on Saturday.
Come on, Virgo. What you're going to have to learn how to do.
You're a Virgo?
Yes,
of course.
all of this, right?
All of us are Virgo.
All of us are. And so what you're going to need to learn how to do is to delegate.
I'm hiring on Saga, and I'm hiring at the city.
That's
And
what
then you got a partner in Saga.
And that's
Shout out to
where-
Marcus.
Shout out to Marcus Burrell.
Yes. And also delegate.
Yep.
And also
I'm
let
a
go of
delegator.
some things. It is okay, but you would not be up at 3:30 if
Well,
you were
I didn't have no
delegating
staff
enough.
until-
Okay, all right.
I didn't have no
I
staff.
don't mean that critically, but I had to really tell myself that because it gets very comfortable. You doing the work, and at some point,
I've
I had to tell
outgrown it.
myself I can't go to all of these meetings and be sane. So I had to just not go and let people represent and know they were going to do a good job. And I think that's the same thing with Saga is, how much do you pour into the people who are actually doing the work?
Yeah, for sure. I was solidly broke for a second, and then as the clients come on, I had to catch up on bills. I always tell people, I was 5-6 months behind on my rent.
Can we talk about that? Because
I want. Can you give instructions on how to be 5 or 6 months behind on your rent? You can't be 5 or 6 months behind on your mortgage and stay.
I'll tell you.
but
I'll tell you what
I
happened.
think your transparency around this issue is very important because one of the things that I think people think about folks who are prominent or quote unquote influencers is that we don't have those types of struggles and problems, and your transparency on this, I think, is eye-opening for a lot of people. How does one be Eric Thomas and be 5 or 6 months behind on their rent?
And then how do you avoid getting kicked out?
I'll tell you the whole thing. So the first part is media is not money, right? So if you see me on the news, they're not paying me for
That's
that.
right.
That's
but
part
I think
one.
people need to know that. People don't know that.
That's part one. Part two, my public, the public awareness of me was not necessarily a plan. There were some things that I wanted to do that did come faster than I expected. But my Facebook strategy is just this is how I actually feel. I'm not trying to drum up anything. So if you're seeing me a lot, that's the algorithm at work. I'm not really trying to do it. If you've interacted with my page, then the algorithm feeds it to you. If your friends are interacting, it feeds it to you. So it feels like I'm doing all this stuff and I'm in your face all the time. But that is just Facebook. Now, did I run a company? Did I have a lot of stuff? Was I giving people steak all the time? For sure. Was there a time when my company was spending $30,000 a month? For sure. But, hey, through mismanagement of my own, through leadership mistakes of my own, through business mistakes of my own, I have made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. I have lost great talent. I have lost great clients. There are things that I've learned in the pathway. I'm only 32 years old. Things that I'm really good at one thing, I wasn't so good at another thing, right? Project management, systems, that kind of stuff. And so I've learned that through failure, truly. And there was just a period that seemed like nobody was hiring any marketing or graphics or design anything. I reached out to a lot of really talented people, and they just weren't getting any work. And so after all that was going on, plus there was some tax issue because you got to spend a lot of money to get the stuff, right? I spend all my money on people, and I figure out the rest on the other side. Because one thing I know about Detroit is it's full of people who need to be paid. So I go out of my way, I hire too many people because I see all this talent. And it stressed me out, especially black talent. They don't present in the way other people want them to present, so they have the ability to do the work, but they don't speak the same way. And so they just assume that they don't have the same talent, if not greater talent. So I was the one hiring everybody, which was killing me. So on the other side of all that stuff, I went through a drought, maybe like a 4 or 5 month drought without any clients, really. But I refused to stop going forward. But I did take about a 3 month span to decide if I wanted to even be here in the city. I put in a lot of work in Detroit to be broke. You know what I'm saying? I have spent, I think the number is $800,000 on hiring Detroiters and contractors. I think 80% or 90% of my contractors have been black, like employees and contractors. And we got no grants. We've got no funds. So that $700,000 is mine, right? Like that we made strategic decisions to hire us. And predominantly Detroiters or people with Detroit connection. I mean, maybe 80% Detroiters. And then you look up and you ain't got shit, right? Like honestly, you look up and you ain't got $1. And then, I have so many eviction notices. I always say I'm going to make an eviction museum. I'm so good at navigating the eviction process. It's disgusting. Like I go into court, I know everything to say. I'm like, hey, public defender, look, I got it. I know exactly what to do. I know how much time it takes. I know what my space is. But what happened in this particular instance is I was meeting with the people and letting them know what was going on because the real secret is answer the phone. We have this tendency to hide and open the mail.
Answer the phone, open the mail, y'all.
I think that's important.
That's so
important.
important.
People to understand. I'm not being sarcastic when I say explain to people how you get 5 or 6
I'm
months
telling
behind.
you.
But I think that a lot of times there is this perception. And I think, part of it has to do with having a good landlord, right?
Yeah.
I think part of it also has to do with how you navigate process. And so thank you for sharing that.
It's
because
real.
You posted that on Facebook, and I saw people were like, okay, explain this to me.
Yeah.
Not like, how are you broke, but how are you still there?
So what happened was, after 2 months, you're supposed to be gone. It was about a 3 month span, and I didn't have no bread. And what happened was the day I went to court, I got a payment plan, which extended it. If you get the payment plan, it will extend that 2 weeks that they'll kick you out in. You can get up to 4 weeks, depending on who your landlord is. Because they want the money. It's more expensive to replace you.
Right.
And then right on the day I was supposed to pay, the building got sold. So then it switched over to a new landlord, a new owner entirely, new system, new rent roll, blah, blah, blah. And so they were trying to get all their stuff together.
So they bought you some time.
And it bought me another 2 months.
Wow.
And by the time they were like, I was at the Black Caucus getting an award about business while being 5 months behind on my rent. So the lady calls me. It's like, you going to pay your rent, G? And I was like, you know what? I'll holler at you when I get back from D.C. Because I'm that type. Like, when I'm in D.C. with these rich black folks, I'll hit you when I get back.
That's why I call you big time.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Just, I'm sophisticatedly broke. And I get there. I had a conversation. That stuff, I still need to get the money. I had a really good friend who has an incredibly high net worth float me $2,000. I had a client that was just starting, but their payment didn't come in until one day after I owed it to them. I got that money from them. The client came in. It took a week and a half for the money to process. I paid my friend back the $2,000 that she gave me, and then I was able to catch up with my rent from then on. Funny enough, by December, based upon the client that I had landed, I had caught up on all of my rent and all of my bills. I had dug my way out of the $5,000 hole.
Nice.
$6,000 hole. I got that all situated, bills all situated. I still have some stuff to pay for business because that's the nature of business. And then I got a text from Alexis Wiley asking me if she wanted to have lunch.
That's pretty amazing, and I thank you for your transparency. One of the things that I want to ask you is, what advice would you have for someone that's up and coming? Because let me tell you what I see. I see a lot of us who are really good at being front facing, but don't know how to go be in the background and do the work. And you sort of hinted at, I was good at this, but I wasn't good at like managing, and I wasn't good at moving things forward. And sometimes we don't have the ability to hire. So for those of us that are coming up who want to be the Eric Thomas that gets to go to DC, who gets to write articles for the Free Press and be very public, what would you say to that person?
Ask for help and don't be too ego-driven that you can't accept the help. It's one thing to ask for help and be like, I need some help. It's a whole other thing to accept advice with the help. Because anybody who is in the position to help you is going to give you advice while they're giving it to you. I mean, that's just the facts, right? The people that I reached out to, I remember when I didn't even ask for the money, actually. I was just telling her about my challenge, and she owns a sizable company. And she looks at me and she goes, and how are we going to work on your self-sabotage?
That's real.
And she broke me down. She said, nobody who knows as many people as you should be broke.
Period.
So what are you doing? Right? And you have to understand that the OGs is looking out for you because they've been you. Right? Like, they may not have lived your exact experience, but life ain't that damn different. Right? You know what I'm saying? We've all been in heartbreak. We've all made mistakes with our money. We've all picked the wrong job. We've all been in one place too long. We've all hired too quick and fired too slow. We've done that. That is business. That is life, right? And so when the OG hit you with the because what was happening is she actually stopped me as I was leaving after we had the whole conversation and said, what do you need? And I was like, well, we talked for 5 hours that day.
Wow.
Right? We talked for 2 hours over a lunch, maybe 3. I left, came back, talked for another 2-3 hours. I mean, we talked all day that day. And after all that, she hit me with the what do you need? Right? And so, you got to be willing to accept the advice from somebody that really gives a damn about you. That doesn't mean you have to take it all.
But accept it.
But accept it and integrate
listen,
it.
Yeah.
Listen.
Right? And listen.
And as someone told me once, eat the fish and spit the bones, right?
Yeah.
So I think that,
Because we don't want to be told nothing.
But
You better learn how to be told something. That's why I tell people I'm a kid all the
so
time.
important, because this is Detroit. And
most people broke
when
in
I
this town.
first met you, not when I first met you, we had this, I think it was for Marcus. We were sitting here and you were delivering some graphic design to me, and I think we talked for another 3 or 4 hours that day. Marcus was sitting there like, can we leave? Like, oh no, we just kept going on and on and on. But I think that from the time I met you, you've always been a person who's been able to had an interesting look at life. And at the same time that you can, speak life into a situation, you can see it exactly as it is.
Yeah.
And that's so important in the role. So I think maybe you'll flip things since we can't get off of Eric and go to what's in the news last.
We could spend the episode talking to Eric.
Yeah, because Eric is the news,
Eric is
right?
fresh off the press.
He is fresh off the press. But I just want to talk about this and just sort of pivot a little bit. I met you. You were just a fascinating person. We had a really long conversation, stayed in contact, and then you dropped the article or the blog, Why I Hate Detroit.
Yeah.
And Why I Hate Detroit really did something. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Marcus always says that whenever anybody else sees something that I say and they're like surprised by it, he's never as surprised or impressed because I always workshop my ideas with him. Anybody who knows me knows I talk too much about whatever the thing that's resting on my mind is because I'm workshopping it. Workshopping what is the best way to deliver this thing. Because usually when I'm saying something that's like really on me, it's like systemic. It's some giant like dissertation about the relationship between, humans. And so and truly I'm poorly read, right? Like I'm not like a reader, right? So what I do is I workshop it with people that I know are much smarter than me. Right? So I'll hit Donna and be like, "Hey Donna, here's just some things that I'm thinking." And Donna, who's much smarter than me and has read a lot of books and has a lot of degrees, would be like, "Eric, that's stupid."
Never happened.
Eric, that's not the truth. This is how I feel. I mean, Donna and I have had we had a thing very recently about nonprofits, right? And you were like, "This is not true. This is a thing that has impacted this community poorly, and people are not investing in us because they believe something that is not the truth, and you're perpetuating this thing that is not the truth." With a platform like yours, and that's dangerous and unacceptable, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? See, it's a thing that did happen, and so I had to sit with that and think about it.
She likes to drop bombs and be like, "Okay."
She's a smart woman, right? Like, and so when somebody who has that type of understanding and that intellect reframes you, you cannot be defensive about that, right? And so, Why Hate Detroit was just me. I've been thinking about why it's so hard to live in Detroit. Not just that it is. I think sometimes we'd be like, it's hard. And the whites, they're taking it. It's like, what does that mean? I was having a conversation, and one thing that comes to me is that one of the most important innovations made in getting money funneled into your community is creating borders around your community. And when you're in Detroit, you recognize your area by its intersection or by the group you belong to. So the way we complain is we say things like, "I live on Joy Road in Greenfield. Joy Road in Greenfield needs some money." But what is the border of Joy Road in Greenfield? When do we stop giving the money? Where does it just gradiate out? Or we say, "Oh, poor people like me need the money." Well, that's 33% of the population. That's 150,000 people. Which ones? What the greatest innovation was, Woodbridge needs some money. That has 4 walls. We know how to get the money based upon that. And so things like that, just thinking about not just what, but why. Mm-hmm. That's where Why Hate Detroit came from. Why is it hard to get a job here? Why is it hard to find something to do here? Because there's been systemic disinvestment over this amount of time focused on this particular group of people. And if you don't have the money to do anything about the systemic impact that has been perpetrated against you, then you drown. And so that's what Why Hate Detroit was about. It was about the feeling of drowning in poverty. And I dropped it one day after I won Crane's 20 in their 20s with Marcus. Another rule we broke because we got the same award together as one person.
You got Cranes.
We got the Crane's 20 in their 20s as one person. We were one slot.
Yeah.
Right?
That made it easy.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Marcus and I have always been like just like a unit. And so but I dropped that article one day after I got this award. Like, I got this award, but like, screw this, right?
Yeah.
Like, then 4 days after, I was at the Mackinac Policy Conference, right? Like, so then it was a whole nother situation. And it was another article that I expected to get way more backlash. I remember telling Marcus right before I posted it, well, I think this is it. I think we've torched the whole thing. I think I've thrown away the whole business. But it changed the dynamic of how people viewed me.
Mm-hmm. I think that is an article that you have this way of getting at tone and saying things in a way that it begins to feel almost universal and people can relate. Mm-hmm. You make your truths relatable. So the title is certainly a great title because everybody's like, I was like, what? I almost didn't read it. I'm like, Why I Hate Detroit. I'm not reading that, but it kept being viral. People kept saying, you must read this. And I was like, I guess. And I read it, and it was the kind of thing that doesn't really alienate people because what you attack is systems.
I attack systems.
And you attack social issues, but you don't attack people. In that whole entire article, you weren't saying, I hate these people from coming in. You sort of criticized their perspective, but not them. Mm-hmm. And I think that allows you to be heard. What do you think?
I mean, when I write things, especially I wrote like our most recent article about Black space. When I write things, I try to think about the on-ramps. If you were to come into this article with whatever your perspective is, how do I want you to feel?
Yeah.
It
That's good. I
It
like that.
does me no justice to tell a bunch of poor black people that they're poor black people. It don't help us our process moving forward. But if I can make a comparison between Before I Let You Go and Journeys, you know what I'm saying? What's the song about South Detroit or whatever? Like, if you can make that comparison, they're both songs that different cultures sing when they're heard and they feel like they are seen.
Yeah.
And if you're at a family reunion, you hear Before I Let You Go, then boom. If you're at a Journey,
Don't Stop Believing.
right, Don't Stop. If you hear Don't Stop, if you're hanging out with a bunch of white folks, you hear Don't Stop. The first time I ever heard that song was on Glee. The second time,
What?
The-
Wait.
I ain't know nothing about that song.
You didn't go to Mercy High School, I tell you.
Absolutely not. And then, but you hear that song when you hang around a bunch of white folks, and they just go crazy. I mean,
It's
the
the
whole place
jam.
explodes. Just the small town, everybody's going nuts. But it's the same feeling. And so when you can link the feeling, right? I've been telling people, like, my goal is to make things emotionally true, right? You cannot lay facts on top of a thing that somebody feels is emotionally dishonest, even if it is true. And that's one of the biggest fights that we have. People go out here and they'll give you all the facts, but you're laying facts on top of the fact that somebody's grandma told them this. And I'm not going to call my grandmother a liar, right? That's why you got to say she's telling stories, right? You cannot tell somebody that their dad did not work for what their family has, right? If you tell somebody that they're privileged and accuse them of not working, they're going to crumple up into a ball because they remember working. Now, they didn't know that there were two guys sitting in a seat, and there was the opportunity to hire one of those two guys, and then the guy picked the guy that was most like him, and that just happened to be you, which changed the trajectory of your life and your family's life. That actually had nothing to do with you, but it was a part of a system that segregated areas so people have different areas to grow up in. Therefore, you have benefited from a system of privilege, whether you have activated yourself or not.
That's right.
Right? And so the system is what is separating us, and a couple of overt races, right? But mostly, you're just a guy who grew up watching baseball with your dad, and your dad knew a guy who owned a construction firm, and you came in at the top where I came in at the bottom, and I worked hard while I was there, and now I'm the CEO of this company, and this guy is a lazy asshole, right? And that's how you feel. Because you didn't make your dad's connections, and your dad, quote unquote, didn't make yours, right? That is systemic. But when I can help people understand that, then they start saying, then do I need to be a bridge if that is what happened? And that is the importance of articles about black space in Detroit and systems.
I'm going to let Orlando jump in, and I have something to...
No, I appreciate the point about moving beyond our transactional relationship with racism, the racists that we encounter at the store, in our neighborhood, and really look at how a system has created some of the perpetuations that we deal with on a daily basis, and how the system in and of itself privileges one group of people over another. So I never have to have a transactional relationship with racism because I live in a system that is inherently racist.
Right.
But systems are run by people.
True.
Yeah.
So I want to push back against it's just the systems, not the people. I know that's not what you're saying.
Yeah.
I want to just push this to the other limit, right?
For sure.
We had the 2016 elections, right? And in 2016, Donald Trump was elected president. And there's two things that happened. One, Democrats didn't take care to address the needs of white voters, white working class voters. And number two, black voters were irresponsible. And that's all in the same thing. Now, both groups of people did not vote for Hillary Clinton. But in the case of white voters, they were not treated well enough. And in the case of black voters, they did not do the responsible thing. And so then the system says, let's figure out how to get these people who we didn't treat well enough. And there's no understanding that you didn't treat black voters well enough to get their votes either.
Exactly.
And so your perspective or your treatment or your lens is colorized. It is racialized such that one group of people you walk away with one group of people, let's figure out how to reach out to them, and the other group of people, let's scold them and tell them their ancestors died for them to
Crazy.
vote. Nobody's telling white people that their ancestors died for them to vote, but their ancestors did die in the Revolutionary War. Am I mistaken? Did they have ancestors there?
They did. Definitely died.
They died.
But only one group of ancestors is looked at as being
Martyrs for this cause.
or the burden is on you. You should be grateful that you have the right to vote, Black people, and you are not behaving with sufficient gratitude towards elections. So when I look at
that's real
racism, there's this issue of systems, and there's also the issue of people and how people choose to view other people within these systems. That racism is perpetuated not just by white people, but by Black people as well, when we don't really stop and think about how we push forward these narratives. And so you have a system where Black people have been incarcerated in mass incarceration, and the whole world didn't notice this was happening until about 2002. I read an article about it, and then Michelle Alexander wrote a book, The New Jim Crow, and people were like, oh, heavens, what are we doing? Well, you know who knew people were being incarcerated at that rate? People who were living in the hood, whose family members were being taken away.
Hello.
So the reality is that, there's also this lens, or you have this situation in Detroit where tax foreclosures have created this huge injustice and this loss of generational wealth and generational security and destabilized whole neighborhoods. And it would not have happened in Birmingham. It would not have happened in Grosse Pointe. So certain people are considered to me to be more expendable, or their needs are just less salient than the needs of other people, which is how we got Flint water, which is how we got, how so much social policy is written. And when I look at the promise of an Eric Thomas as storyteller, putting a lot on your shoulders, but you carry it well, Eric. I really wanted to ride in your new car, but I'm understanding that may not be.
I will not be buying a new car. No.
So here's what I'm really disappointed, because I was just like, Eric, take me for a spin. Okay, now you're gonna have to pick me up in your lift.
I'll rent a Maven. I'll rent a Maven and take you somewhere.
We're coming to a steak dinner at the apartment that he gets to keep.
Hey, right. I got a place.
But steak and seafood, because I'm more of a seafood type.
I do make shrimp with my steak.
Okay, surf and turf. Let's do it. But the other thing I'm placing on your shoulders, and I apologize because I think you can handle it, is the need to make visible those people who have been overlooked. I don't believe that people stopped. I don't believe anybody sat in the room, Joe Biden or whoever sat in the room and said, hey, let me come up with a bill that takes parents away from children and that completely destroys neighborhoods. I think there was this short thinking, and I think the problem is the people who are designing policy don't understand the people who policy impacts.
Absolutely.
And you do. So
I think,
how do you see that your role being able to carry this?
So there's a few things. Anytime you are in a system, anything you do inside that system perpetuates that system. I think a good example of that is the guy who shot Philando Castile was an Asian dude. Right? It wasn't a white dude at all.
That's right.
But a system that makes Black men dangerous and volatile, even the Black cops are perpetuating white supremacy.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And this is the same type of thing. There were all these things going on in Detroit that are systemic, that are bigger than Duggan, that are bigger than Detroit, that are bigger than the state, that are bigger than the federal government. Anti-Blackness is a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is practicing geographic racism. After we stop being able to target Black people, you can't put it in your contracts, but in your policy. But what you could say is that Detroit, the city that is 80% Black and 90% people of color, we're going to defund the schools. We're going to defund this stuff. We're not even going to, the craziest
We're not even
part.
going to share profits.
Right. What's crazy thing about this, I did not know as much about property tax law as I have had to learn in the last 3 weeks. But when you look at what the emergency manager did when they gutted the assessments department, even before Duggan got there, right, the department was crippled. In no other city in America with some real power could you have gutted a department that was directly related to the net worth of the people that live there, right? And so Birmingham would have had a problem with that, right? Like these places would have a problem with that. And so it is the systemic mechanism of us going, to your point, those people, it's not that those people don't matter, but How are they gonna stop us?
Well, but I think that
or
there
the systems that created a situation where we can strip Black Detroiters of their democratic power to elect people to actually run the systems in the city of Detroit.
True.
Under the guise of a Democratic governor. But go ahead, Donna. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, it's a great place. Emergency management is a thing.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
thing.
a good thing. But, here's the thing. I think it's, like I said, it's more complex than that. Like, my kids went to school. My two youngest kids graduated from Birmingham Groves High School.
Mm-hmm.
Black kids, white kids in the same school, geographically similar. Black kids get sent to one type of class, white kids get sent to another type of class.
sure.
And had nothing to do with any type of assessment. They were not assessing kids. They were saying, you came from this school district, therefore we know that you're not able to handle the coursework here. Where parents had to fight to get their kids in honors and AP classes inside of the same school. The assumption was always, here's a Black child, they are not as smart. So there's systems, and then there is also bias.
There's
and
bias.
the way the bias systems help to perpetuate bias. I think there's also false narratives about our city. There's false narratives about how Detroit got to be the way it is. People don't
Absolutely.
understand the color of law. People don't understand the content of the book Race for Profit or
Talk
the
about
origins of the urban crisis. And therefore, they look at Detroit falling apart as a result of Black irresponsibility and not governmental structures that oppress people completely. So now we have this time. And I've heard people, when I talk about some of the residents we serve, say, well, did they pay their taxes? And I'm like, they're still living in their homes. Of course they paid their taxes. If they weren't paying their taxes, they wouldn't be there. But the perception of them is that they're tax scofflaws, they're irresponsible, they're people who have not done the right thing, and they should not get mad that other people are coming to the city of Detroit who know how to do the right thing and are going to fix things. What I've tried to do in whatever little spaces I have, which are nowhere near yours, is try to fix that narrative by showing people who are taxpayers who live next door to abandoned homes and dead trees and broken water mains and don't get the kind of city services despite the fact that they've been paying taxes sometimes for 60 years, maintaining their blocks, watching other people's kids.
Shout out to Willie Mae Gaskin.
Holding fundraisers for police officers.
Shout out to Willie Mae.
And on her birthday, when she turned, 85, planted flowers in front of a fire station. And yet on her block, she can't get services. And people need to understand who she is, that this is this beautiful human being who is being impacted in this way, I think, before policy begins to change and say, let's take care of her.
So to your question about what is my job as storyteller in this context, that's my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
I as people have been asking me, like, what do I expect to do in this role? It is truly to change the perception of Detroiters, right? Like that is the real thing. To your point, working with homeless shelters and all that kind of stuff, we often say that people are not homeless; they're experiencing homelessness. You cannot label somebody by a terrible thing that's happened to them, right? They say Detroiters are illiterate. It's like Detroiters are not like that is not their defining factor. Detroiters are wonderful, thriving, creative, awesome, amazing people, yes. And some of them have been failed by an educational system, and so now our job is to elevate those folks who can do everything that anybody else can do, even despite
come on
that challenge. And now what we have to do is create a scaffolding so they can show you why they're so incredible. You have to change how we even talk about people.
That's right. And some of those are some of the greatest storytellers, right?
They tend to be.
People who, you have great storytelling. Go and talk to some people. I mean, I'm standing Rite Aid one day, and I'm talking to these guys who are clearly homeless and were about to ask for some money. And somehow, I forget how they started talking. I think I had on a Tigers baseball shirt or something, and all of a sudden they start talking about their work and how they used to play the organ and be in the band. I'm like, what in the heck? This guy is homeless, and yet he's got these rich, beautiful memories because he didn't start out that way.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny. I was walking down the street with one of my guys, and one of the homeless people that I talk to a lot, because I talk to a lot of the homeless people. Like, I really take this homeless thing seriously. And the guy walks up and he says, I love this guy. And he just hugs me, just wraps his arms around me. And my dude was like, what the hell is going on? And it was just like, these people in our city,
for calling them people.
Right? They're people. I have a thing where I never ignore a person who's asking me for money, if they ask me for anything. Right? I may not have the money to give in to you, right? Because I was 5 months behind on my rent. Right? Sometimes I'm broke too, but I will always acknowledge you. I will acknowledge anyone who speaks to me, because that's a human. That's a human being. You're not like, just because it's back to our like answer the phone, right? Like you have been granted the honor and opportunity on this earth to be able to acknowledge people. This is a gift. Being alive is a gift. And so when you have the opportunity to look someone in the eye and show them that you care about them, you should take that opportunity every time. Because no one had to do that for you when you were at your worst, right? And so the only difference between you and them is infrastructure, right? Mom, dad, mentor, person that found you, whoever Charlie Wilson's wife is, right? Like, right? These people, they found you and they believed in you, and you should pay that forward, right? Detroiters are full of those people. People always ask me, like, what's my favorite part of Detroit? The people, without a doubt. They're hilarious and engaging and creative.
Everybody's answer.
That's everybody's answer.
Yes, it's
they're,
us.
They're incredible people, and we must give people back their humanity. We must use storytelling to give people back their hope. The worst thing that I see, and not just Detroit, but in black people, is that they're so battered that they've stopped fighting for basic necessities. And
it's a surprise when we get the
lights, you know.
Oh,
it's like, it's supposed to have
the
lights.
trash has been picked up.
Or there's so much trauma.
So much trauma.
That all we do is fight.
We just have our hands up.
We have so many people engaged in so
fighting.
much fighting.
Oh.
It's like, who are all the bad people? I'm going to call them out. I'm going to, whatever. And it makes it difficult to engage with people as humans. And I don't know that you can fix problems by calling somebody out and calling them out their name. You know what I mean? I think that the only way to influence anybody to be different is to talk to them and try to use whatever kind of influence you have to change them. And it's not going to be perfect. But I feel as though there is this call them out culture. I mean, we actually have the Call them out coalition.
Yeah,
and we have the Sambo Awards. It's like, wow.
You know what's crazy? And that's my family over there. Agnes Hitchcock. I grew up, my grandma was in Call them out, which is why this is such an interesting situation for me to be in. I tell people all the time, shoot, I told them in city government when I was there, these are my people. These are the people I'm beholden to.
FYI.
You know what I'm saying? To keep it 1,000 with you.
Keep it real. Okay?
I have been in cars with Agnes Hitchcock. I grew up with Agnes Hitchcock. You know, like, that's my dog. Maureen Taylor? What?
Yeah.
That's
one of
family.
the things that I say about that, and I agree with Donna around productivity.
I agree.
And being able to have and connect with people's humanity. But I also think that there is a space for everybody and what everybody brings. And so we have folks who have the ability to go in and sit at tables with power and advocate. We got the folks that's going to march. We got the folks that's going to agitate. I think we have to figure out how we can harness all of these levers that we have at our disposal for the greater good, right? And right now, I don't see that happening. Right.
I think Detroiters have earned righteous indignation. I think one of the things that you'll see is when people blow up on me, even if you see it on Facebook. One of my friends made a status. She was like, nobody can get yelled at without getting mad except maybe Eric Thomas, right? Like, because when a 65-year-old woman is yelling at me about her roof and something that happened to her son, she's yelling at me because it's the first time someone just sat and that was close enough to do something about it.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm not upset. All I can think of is I can only imagine what you've been through to get to this point. I can only imagine 40 years of frustration boiling over every day to the point where you don't know what to grab onto. And now somebody gave you 5 minutes to speak at a microphone at a charter event or something like that. And now it's just, this is it.
You're right. And we have people who come to our meetings all the time like that.
Yeah.
And, one person in particular always.
That's where I got my chops.
You
can't take it personal.
Always.
I'd have been cussed out.
And you've got to listen to people.
Yes.
And you've got to respond. And
you have
got
to honor
care.
their experience.
You've got to honor their experience and care. There's no way to be effective working in the community when you expect everybody to say nice things and do nice things. There are people who, one woman got mad at me about something that I said, and I was mistaken on the show, and she said something, and she got really upset. And I had to take that and respond to it and care about it because what I said was hurtful to her.
Right.
And I had to own that, right? So people have the right to their feelings, and I think that when we get defensive, it's really unhealthy and unproductive, especially when you consider yourself a leader. But I think that what I'm talking about is the propagation of lies and the propagation of attacks on people who step out there to lead.
Yeah.
Creates this conflict where people sometimes are afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
And when you're afraid to speak up, nothing gets solved because nobody's really talking to anybody and bringing the best of themselves to the table.
Yeah.
And so it feels like we need, some type of cultural healing. It seems like, when you have emergency management, all of your rights are taken away. When you have bankruptcy and pensioners and you have the complete restructuring of the water department and the sewage, not the water, but the sewage bills are some of the highest in the nation. And people have their water shut off. We have about 11,000 people right now in Detroit.
Without water.
Households without water in Detroit right now. When you have that happening, you can understand the trauma.
For sure.
But the challenge is going to be, where do we get to restorative justice? Where do we get to mutual respect where we can sit down at a table, map out what the problems are, and map out solutions without having to call somebody else out their name and thinking the worst of not just that person who did that, but anybody who's friendly to them.
I think
we need somebody with the credentials to come in and facilitate that. I mean, what we're essentially talking about is community and cultural healing, and I think storytelling is a part of that, but it's a much larger conversation. Number one, of acknowledging that, number one, I'm traumatized. I think people are traumatized and don't know it.
for sure.
And we show up to spaces carrying that trauma, and when we have the opportunity, we express it in a way that is not necessarily always productive toward a solution or acknowledging the humanness in someone else, even if they're Eric Thomas, who's closer now to power.
I think one of the things that I see that's increasingly more frustrating is that when you propagate mistruth for clout, it harms people that need help.
Yes.
And that's happening.
And it's a thing that happens
in this city.
In a lot of places, right? This is a thing that I know for a fact. Everybody that I've met in city government thus far, I have not met all 9,000 people that work for the city, but everybody I've met thus far wants Detroiters to have a quality of life, right, increase. Now, we are all disagreeing on how that happens. We're disagreeing on how much money even exists to do a thing. We disagree on the methodology by which it can get done. But when you say things like, this is happening because this individual man is trying to get rid of these individual types of people, and then when that person comes out with a thing that can actually help the people, and then you say anything that comes from this direction is bad for you, now people who could have their water cut back on don't get the help that they need. People who could keep their house out of foreclosure don't get to use the right services, because there are services for particular things. And I've read into this long before I worked for the city, because I do all this work in housing, in healthcare, and homelessness, and blah, blah, blah. One of the biggest issues we ran into was that people wouldn't answer the phone or the email or the text message from the department that could get the thing turned back on. And it was just like, enroll in this thing, right? It was like, if you just, the majority of people are able to do certain things. Now there is a group of people who are so deep in the poverty gap, right? Where the household income is $9,000 for a year type of stuff, which requires a much different type of infrastructure to support. Because when you have if you are, I think it's single parent households in church, like 72%, right? Something like that. Like, it's really high. If you are a single parent, man or woman, with 3 people in your house, 3 or 4 people in your house, and your income is $10,000 a year, that's a wrap. There's no conversation. That's why I hate that conversation. Why aren't you saving?
But
saving what?
There used to be a social contract in this nation that was much better than it is right now. We used to have public housing.
Yeah.
We used to have food stamps. We used to have welfare benefits that didn't go away. And I know people think they made people dependent, but you know what? They also made people whole. And there was actually much more movement out of poverty when we had all of those benefits in place than we took them away.
For sure.
One thing about societies where you have these great wealth gaps is that people who are poor tend to stay poor. And so this whole concept that poverty or that welfare keeps people dependent, what ends up happening is that poverty keeps people poor, and welfare can sometimes act as a bridge between poverty and the middle class. I think we have to acknowledge that and look at the role of government. Now, I think it's very optimistic to say that everybody who works in any government, in any place, is really concerned about trying to make sure that people live very well.
Right.
I think that
Not very well.
Well, but live that well. There are some people in any system who believe that people don't deserve certain things, whether it's a welfare system, whether it's a job market, whether it's a school system. There are always going to be people who believe that only these people deserve good things, and these people have not earned that their keep. And I think that we have to be honest about the fact that sometimes that exists in every single government. It's existed in every single government and every single system I've interacted with for the reasons that we just talked about, and that is racism, where the racism is so embedded in the system that the mindset is you can't help these people, so let's not even try. And I think that somehow having a storyteller give human face to people who are homeless and people who are living in $9,000 homes helps people make better decisions. There was just an article that came out in the Citizens Research Council that showed that our anti-poverty programs, our welfare to work programs, are not helping the right people because we are not really helping people who are truly poor.
Right. It's there's one thing that I think about the city of Detroit, and once again, I say this a lot. I don't care why you help people, as long as you help people. Some people are so on this really moral high horse. Well, if they get tax breaks, it don't count. If I get to eat this week, I don't care why they cut me the check. I need to be alive, right? Detroit is so poor, right? And this is sometimes I think we need to keep it 100. Detroit as a city is so big and so broke and so poor that the systems are breaking down. The plumbing is breaking down, right? One of the major reasons that people's water bills are so high is because the plumbing is screwed up, right? I talked to a guy, and he said that his plumbing, his bill was $500 a month. He went and fixed all the pipes in his house, and it went down to $38 a month, right? It was the infrastructure.
Right. But let me just interject right there. Did he get help? Because
his dad was a plumber. But what I'm saying is that when you look at the fact that the system are breaking down, it actually does no one in Detroit who lives in Detroit any positive service, right? For anyone, for the city to maintain this level of brokenness. Because even the white folks who live in the nice neighborhoods were having police not show up, right? You're not getting your trash picked up either. There was no recycling. The streets were it was still dangerous. Poverty creates the ecosystem and environment for crime because the lack of having things makes you go out and do certain things. I'm not even blaming people for that. If you need to feed your kids, you feed your kids. And so I don't know. Now, if we talk systemic and statewide and blah, 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 we don't want to give Detroit money, so my people get money. Cool. But the people inside Detroit, it don't help none of us for Detroit to be this messed up.
No, it doesn't. But we still have made decisions. And I don't want to take
don't
those
wanna minimize
decisions,
that
those
either.
priorities out of government.
Yeah.
Governments make decisions based on priorities and the people they prioritize. And we know that happens all of the time.
True.
I do think that there is a structural issue. And the fact is that the reason Detroit is so poor is not just the people are poor. All cities are poor.
The city's poor.
Because our nation has cut taxes and cut taxes and cut taxes so that you're getting less federal funding. There's very little federal grant making that's coming to cities right now. Our state has cut taxes and cut taxes, so revenue sharing has shrunk. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but also our property tax structure is such that you cannot recapture losses in property value. So what ends up happening is this concentration of poverty. And the other thing is we have these downtown development authorities that get richer and richer and richer and richer and richer because all of the new property taxes generated downtown are captured in a tax increment finance district that can only be spent downtown.
Right.
And so Detroit, these are choices. And the only thing I'll say about all governments, not just Detroit, any government in the state of Michigan, is you have the ability when you are a mayor, when you are city council, when you are a leader in Detroit to go to Lansing and start saying, let's look at changing this. Let's look at changing our tax structure. Let's look at changing our property tax. Let's look at adding a new revenue generating structure so that we can get entertainment taxes coming in for people who are coming here hanging out downtown, because they're going to come whether or not we charge 3% on entertainment venues or not. I think that the feeling that we've got to do something has got to be there. We've got to light a fire. And I actually believe we're at a time right now where a fire has been lit. And the fire was lit by our investigative journalism at the Detroit News and Free Press, which have highlighted the impact of certain public policy decisions. And right now, people in the city are trying to figure out, how are we going to deal with the $600 million or potential $600 million. I know some people question that in overtaxing. Well, but how are we going to deal with it? At first, there was this feeling, well, we can't really do much. And now they know they're going to have to do something. And I think that that has a lot to do with the activism that's happened and the investigative journalism. And I think that you're joining the city administration at a great time.
I think that's the value. I believe that's the value of activism, and that's the value of uncovering. I don't think people tend to move without the fire being lit. That's why I'm Team Riot, right? But everybody's like, Eric, riots are bad.
This man here.
I'm like sometimes
he doesn't get a bill for that. Right. He don't get no bill.
I'm about to take the bell away.
Oh, I'm gonna give him the bill.
No,
people, and this is why. Look, who was it? It might have been Kenny. It's Kenny or King. One of them was talking about like riot. Riot is the sound of people unheard, right?
Yes.
This idea that we could just gently convince people to change an entire system is not a real thing. At some point, you have to just
agree
get
with
loud
that.
as hell. And unfortunately, like America has a history of revolution.
Yeah.
From the Boston
Nicole
Tea Party.
Jones said that, when black people are really seen is when we strike a match and set some stuff on fire.
And that's,
she did say that.
That's a thing. Like, but I don't think in this particular instance we're going in that direction.
Right.
But this is what I always wish we would do, and this is why we as a people tend to fall by the wayside. Something like this will happen. And then what you don't do is you don't educate yourself on the system, right? Because the system is what created the opportunity for this to happen, right? Because like I said, it predates the guy that's there. It predates the structure of the city itself. It's a statewide, focused, concentrated, screw this place type of move, right? But this is what they're going to do. This guy is trying to kick this old lady out of her house. And that is not what we need to be protesting. What we need to be protesting is all of the systems that are disinvesting in a community like Detroit over and over again, because the city is concentrated black people and concentrated people of color. And even if we, in this instance, get somebody to make a move towards this thing and put a couple people back in their house, Detroit will still be a place outsizely affected by systems.
I agree with that, but I don't want to release or absolve local government from certain responsibilities and decision making, where we have power to exercise that we haven't done, right of first refusal, to help folks get back in their home. Like there are many levers that local government can pull that we aren't pulling for whatever reason, that I want to make sure that we acknowledge. I hear what you're saying, but there's still some responsibility to be attributed to some of the decisions that our local government people in power that have made, that have perpetuated and contributed to these systems.
But either made or not made, right?
We're either made or not
because
made.
Here's the deal. 1999. I believe it was 1999, 2000, sometime like that. The state of Michigan changed the tax foreclosure law and made it happen more quickly. Mm-hmm. So in the past, you could owe taxes for any number of years, but the state would have to, or the city would have to sue in order to get a home back, in order to take a home that had defaulted on taxes. Mm-hmm. And you had a lot of slumlords who were doing that. A lot of people were owning properties, zombie properties, and not paying their taxes. And the city rightfully wanted a mechanism to bring those properties back from those zombie owners. And they created a law that was expedited for tax foreclosures. Around 2002, we started seeing a lot of them in Detroit. And we kept seeing them and seeing them and seeing them and seeing them and seeing them. And it's happening all over the state. At some point, if I am the political leader and I see neighborhoods being torn apart by this, I see neighborhoods being made more poor by foreclosures. If I see that I'm running middle class people out of neighborhoods because they don't want to live next to vacant homes, at some point I'm trying to get the law changed. Or at some time I'm exercising power within my authority. When that doesn't happen, I've got to hold you accountable. It's not as though allowing 161 or however many thousand foreclosures taking place in the city of Detroit by taxes. It's not as though that helped the city become less poor. It's not as though it helped the city become more populous. It's when you have negligent government that doesn't do what it can do within its power that I say we have to hold it accountable. You have to understand there is a crisis, there is a story behind every single loss. And if our government is more conscious of the fact that these are real people losing their homes, and when I talk to residents, the big issue with so many residents is not only did this person lose their home, but somebody bought the home, lit it on fire, the house next door to it caught fire, and now my whole block is gone. And you have whole neighborhoods destroyed because of government inaction. Or when you think about the human consequences of people not having drinking water in their homes. I don't know what the fix is. I'm not mayor. I'm not governor. I'm not Wayne County executive. I'm not treasurer. All I know is that there are people elected to those roles who have the responsibility to figure out how to make sure that people have water. If for no other reason, then we're worried about SARS and people can't wash their hands.
And this disease that's coming from China.
What do you do if there's a flu outbreak? Wash your hands with soap and water. Wash your hands for 5 minutes, and now you don't have water. It's ridiculous to me from a human public health standpoint, not to mention standing water in people's homes. So I think, again, the kinds of decisions that get made can only be made. The kind of inaction that's taking place can only be inaction if people who are making decisions do not understand the human toll and the impact.
I think one of the biggest challenges with government, especially the more I exist in it, right? I've been there for 3 weeks. I've always been fairly politically minded. I've always talked to people, like I said, my lineage is fighting the government, right? Is every single line issue is a life-threatening issue, right? From dog bites up to water shutoffs, right? They are, when it's happening to you particularly, it is the worst thing that could ever happen. Now, before this, I was doing a lot of sustainability work, right? I was working with the Office of Sustainability, but I also work with Detroit Future City and Detroit Working for Environmental Justice, all these other groups, and we were doing different types of work. And I remember the urgency every time around environmental justice, right? I was involved in all those things, and everything was on fire. And I remember working like, oh my God, we have to do all this stuff, right? Then you switch over to like foreclosures, and it's like, oh my God, like this is the worst thing ever. And then you switch over to like infant mortality, and you're just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. But after you go through like 6 or 7 or 8 of those different choices, you're like, oh my God, this is all the worst thing ever. Like how do you take a bite out of it? Now, once again, I do believe that it is. Like, when you take that job, everybody asks me, am I going to run for mayor? Absolutely not. I don't know how to fix this stuff, right? Like, but what I do think is, to your previous point, storytelling is a way to put a face to a lot of these challenges. Sometimes you do get to the point where there's so many things going on, you do start looking at numbers, right? Like, oh, X number of houses have been foreclosed on. X number of things have happened in this area. Even when you work at a place.
Behind these numbers
and
and
the
facts.
numbers are so huge.
They're so huge.
And there are people who are researchers, who are nationally recognized researchers who said, you know what, we don't know Flint water is bad. The Flint water is poisoning children and families. There are people who said that. And they just sat back and watched children drink that dirty water. Everybody, including President Obama, went there and drank water, pretending like Flint water was good.
Like it was fine.
It would never happen in a place where people mattered. And that's all I'm saying. You could not have this many tax foreclosures. I understand Roma's burning and all that kind of stuff, but you don't have to do everything. The reality is putting a moratorium on tax foreclosures is a matter of will, not power. It's not law. It is a matter of saying, I'm going to stop this. Didn't Lori Lightfoot in Chicago say, I'm going to stop water shutoffs in Chicago? People have the ability to do things, and when they don't, I don't want to hear, well, there were so many problems, I couldn't get to that. When Fiat Chrysler said they wanted to expand, and the city gave everybody 3 months, they assembled 200 acres of land. They spent over $200 million assembling that land, purchasing the land. I'm not even talking about tax write-offs. Purchasing the land and engaged in all kinds of land deals in order to make this happen. That was a focused activity of government because government believed this is important. And there are those people who believe that people having drinking water is equally important, and people living in homes and maintaining the infrastructure of a neighborhood is equally important. And I think that, there are so many brilliant people in and around Detroit. Every time I meet you said this to people, right? There are so many people doing stuff here who know stuff. Open it up and let them come in and advise you. There are many brilliant people who are not at the table where decisions are being made and where policy is being created who can help. And I'm really hopeful that as we move forward, there's going to be a more inclusive problem-solving process because these problems are deep, and the experts are there.
So let me round out this conversation because we're at hour 6 and we've been running long. I think it's safe to say you got a big job, and that you have a lot ahead of you. But I want to do like something really I think will be super cool and fun, like these rapid fire questions because everyone has these questions. So don't take all day answering these questions. They're rapid fire.
Short questions.
Because we gotta wrap it up.
I got you.
So you are very politically active and opinionated. Does taking this position marginalize your voice?
No.
What is your top priority right now as the city's chief storyteller?
To elevate Detroiters, to give Detroiters back their humanity. I think that's very important that people are not just seen as numbers, and they're not just, to your point previously, that people are not seeing this as Detroiters' fault. It's systemic, and so Detroiters need to be given back that voice.
Cool. We talked a lot about delegation order earlier. How many people do you supervise?
I'm in a weird seat where I don't necessarily supervise people, but I work with people. But I am going to be at least hiring in a person to work with me directly.
All right. And how are we going to see you moving in the city given this new position?
Same way you always see me moving in the city, but people are going to probably pretend to like me more.
So, of course, Eric, we got to have you back for part 2. This discussion has been absolutely fascinating every time, and we get deep really quick. Michael Rafferty was here last week. He was like, man, y'all got deep real fast.
That's my dog.
That's what we do. I love Rafferty. He's the GOAT for Hire and Lauren, right?
Yeah, man. Also on the board with Donna. Right. Also on the board with
Detroit. Two new Detroit Inc. board members.
It's going to be an exciting meeting this month, right?
What is it, like
Thursday?
Thursday or something?
Yeah, Thursday morning, 8:30 a.m.
Can I be a fly on the wall there?
I gotta check and make sure.
I want to be a fly on the wall and stay home, but 8:30 is crosstown. No, I'm excited about the meeting. I'm excited because I feel as though Lauren solves a lot of the problems that have been coming up in meetings.
Yeah. So if you have topics that you want to discuss on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Donna?
Now, I did just want to recognize that somebody did send an email, and they had 2 topics they
Rashawn
wanted
Foster.
us to touch on. Can you just touch on those topics real quickly?
Yeah, so Rashawn's son, Foster, sent 2 stories. One of the stories acknowledging really a collective effort over on Oakland Avenue with Central Detroit Christian, our friends Jamie, at the Oakland Avenue Artists Coalition, North End Woodward Community Association. They have resurrected this beautiful piece of art on Oakland Avenue that is finally opening and done. They partner with the Community Public Arts Detroit, CPAD, through the College for Creative Studies to get this art installation done. And they have partners from all around the world. And Jami Tata is a former pupil of Donna's and a good friend of mine, currently at Michigan Community Resources, working alongside our friend Shamil Dobbs to build the capacity of grassroots and other nonprofits in the city. So this, hats off to you guys. It looks beautiful. Check out the Oakland Avenue Artists Coalition. And Rashawn also sent a story regarding making Detroit taxpayers whole for the net overcharge of the overassessments and property taxes. Son, we thank you for sending those stories. We have been knee deep in property tax stories, at least for the last month. So we will get to those. We actually didn't get to what we planned today because Eric Thomas comes in and he just switches the whole schedule. He's that dynamic.
I just talk too much.
I think it was probably me who took everything out of order. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Couldn't wait to get into that. But I do want to thank Eric for coming in.
Thank you.
These
Shout
are
out to
really
Eric.
difficult conversations to have. We're going to have
And I know you having them almost every day now.
And the reality is I have never been more optimistic that things are going to be good because I think that the community is active enough and I think the mayor's office is listening and certainly there with you there. I'm going to be optimistic and end this show on my end by just saying I expect good things ahead. I think that city council is active. The community is active. The mayor's office is trying to develop solutions, I hope. And so I'm hoping to maintain that optimism the next time we sit down and we can talk about the progress that we've made on these topics. So
I love it.
All right.
So shout out to Eric. We shout outs. So I want to shout out the Lower East Side Action Plan Stakeholder Advisory Group taking place on February the 4th. Dinner is served at 5:30. It's going to be at Mac Market. That's located right across the street from Mac Alter Square. The address is 14711 Mac Avenue. Be there or be square. The topic concerning that meeting is flooding. So if you've been experiencing flooding in your neighborhood and in your home, you want to come out and get some information and have some discussions about that. I mentioned MCR earlier. I want to shout MCR out for their work with the KIPD grantees, just helping those folks who haven't been granted traditionally by philanthropy get through those kinds of processes, and our LEAP fellows who will be front and center tomorrow at the LEAP SAC Stakeholder Advisory Group meeting tomorrow at Mac Market. You got shout outs, Donna?
Yes, I do. I want to shout out all of the LEAP fellows who were awarded project grants last weekend. And so I'm going to try to get these names right. Yvonne Willis, Tamara Howard, Brenda Butler, Letitia Johnson, Javonda Robertson, Michelle Jackson, Katrina Watkins, Dwayne Ashford, Robert Sipperin, Dolores Orr, and there's a couple who Danny Dolly, and I'm missing one person's name, but I want to shout out all of our fellows for the hard work they put into
Congrats, guys.
Creating very creative projects on the east side of Detroit.
And shout out to the Irv Family Foundation for funding that project.
As well as Cedar Tree Alternative for funding 3 of the fellows.
Yes. So that's super cool. Eric, you got shout outs? Who you want to shout out, Eric?
Man, can I just shout out all the Detroiters that didn't set me on fire for taking this position? That really supported me and was I got messages. Like I'm gonna keep it 100. I almost cried at the positive reception to me taking this role, which means that I've done something in my career that meant something. So shout out to Detroit because they really supported me in the decision I was worried about.
Yeah.
Well, let's shout Eric out for doing a great job. I know it's going to happen.
3 weeks in, bro.
And we're really looking forward to it.
We got your back.
Have a good day.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for listening. Catch the wave.